Some moments in life don't simply linger. They reach deep inside, unlocking parts of you that you thought would always stay stuck. For me, one of those moments found me on an icy February afternoon, when all I wanted was to disappear behind a mug of spicy chai and forget, just for a little while, how heavy the world can be for someone who looks like me. But that day, in a bustling Minneapolis coffee shop, coat still zipped to my chin and cheeks tingling from the cold, I stumbled into a conversation that would upend everything I believed about myself, my worth, and even the universe itself. So here's a little about me. I'm Erica, 30, black woman, lifelong Minnesotan, marketing specialist, and honestly, the kind of person who's spent a lifetime keeping her feelings zipped up as tightly as her winter parka. Growing up on the north side of Minneapolis, I learned how to fit in, how to brush aside subtle slights, and how to transform pain into a kind of determined perfectionism nobody could question. Mom was always clear. You'll have to work twice as hard, smile twice as wide, and let the little things slide, sweetheart. So I did, until I just couldn't anymore. Because here's the truth. No matter how hard you work or how carefully you walk, there's always someone ready to remind you, intentionally or not, that you're different. Sometimes it's the way a glance lingers, sometimes a compliment with a hidden sting. Just last week, I wrapped up a big pitch and the new team manager grinned and said, "You're so articulate, I didn't expect that." I laughed it off, but inside, something in me twisted tight. There are days when the weight of not quite belonging gets so heavy, it feels like I can't catch my breath. Walking downtown past the glossy glass storefronts, sometimes I'd see my reflection and wonder, will these streets ever truly feel like home? That day in the coffee shop, I honestly wanted to be invisible. The world outside was gray and sharp, and inside the air buzzed with steam, the smell of espresso, and the low hum of quiet conversations. It should have felt comforting, but I just felt alone, hiding in plain sight. Every table was brimming with students hunched over laptops or couples whispering over pastries, except for a single open seat near the frosted window. I slid into the wooden chair, the heat from my chai seeping into frozen fingers. The city outside was a blur of snowflakes and headlights. I almost didn't notice her at first, the woman in the bright green head wrap, reading a thick paperback, her brown hands wrapped around a chipped mug. She looked up as I sat, her eyes kind, the type that makes you feel seen without a word. "Rough day?" she asked, her voice gentle but somehow direct, as if she'd known exactly what I was feeling. There was something about her, a calmness that made it impossible to fake a smile or shrug it off. I nodded, the ache in my chest making my answer ache too. For once, I didn't have the energy to pretend. The silence between us, filled with clinking cups and the hiss of the espresso machine, felt strangely safe. Somehow, in that noisy shop, I finally let my guard down. She introduced herself as Miriam, reaching out her hand warmly. "You know," she said, "I've had more than my share of those days. Sometimes it feels like the world just wants to close you in." Her gaze flicked to the snowy street and back. "But you know what I've learned? The world often treats you how you expect it to. Not always, of course, but much more than we realize." Her words hung in the air like breath on glass. I wanted to argue, to list every reason it wasn't true, but she just listened as I shared about the meeting, the comments, the weight of always being on guard. As I spoke, my voice grew steadier, the words tumbling out. Not just the big moments, but the dozens of tiny ones, the everyday reminders that I never quite fit. Miriam listened with her whole being. No advice, no fixing, just presence. It hit me then how rare it is to be really listened to, especially when it comes to pain that so many people refuse to see. Then she asked, "Have you ever heard of the law of attraction?" I was surprised. "Is that like, if you just think positive, everything gets better?" Trust me, I wish it was that easy. She smiled knowingly. "It's not about ignoring what's hard. It's about realizing that your thoughts create your reality. Not always the circumstances, but always your inner experience. If you start shifting, even just a little, life has a way of shifting with you. Your energy is powerful, more powerful than you think." Before I could say anything, Miriam pulled a small slip of paper from her bag, sliding it across the table to me. In careful handwriting, it said, I am worthy of love and belonging. I choose to see abundance and connection everywhere I go. Say it out loud every morning for a month, even when you don't believe it, maybe especially then. Just try and see what happens, she said, her expression steady, almost mischievous. I wanted to brush it off, but something inside me, an old hope or maybe just exhaustion, made me promise to try. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, clutching Miriam's note. It felt awkward, almost silly at first, to look myself in the eyes and repeat, I am worthy of love and belonging. I choose to see abundance and connection everywhere I go. Still, I did it. The first few mornings, my voice sounded uncertain, almost foreign, but gradually it grew stronger. I paid attention to my days that week, the way the barista smiled and remembered my order, the unexpected thank you from my boss, an old friend texting just to check in. Each tiny moment shimmered with a new significance. It was as if I was turning the dial, tuning into a slightly brighter version of reality. Were these just coincidences, or could they be signs from the universe? Part of me clung to caution, afraid to get my hopes up. But another part, quieter but persistent, wondered if the universe is listening, if energy really does ripple out and change what returns. Then came the setback. Later that week, during a casual team lunch, someone made a joke about my hair that hit harder than they realized. The laughter around the table felt like a slap. My stomach clenched, shame burning behind my eyes. For a moment, I felt myself shrinking back into old patterns, silent, apologetic, wishing the floor would swallow me. But something different happened this time. I excused myself, breathing deep in the restroom, and remembered Miriam's words. I looked into the mirror and, voice trembling, repeated my affirmation. Affirmations, I realized that day, work not because they erase pain, but because they anchor you when everything threatens to pull you under. They help you raise your vibration, little by little, like planting your feet in the storm. I craved more, so I started reading about manifestation and the power of intention. Miriam had suggested a few names: Louise Hay, Abraham Hicks, Neville Goddard, and I found their words oddly comforting. They spoke about being a conscious creator, about choosing, gently and persistently, to speak to your own worth until the world starts to echo it back. Every night, I added something new, a gratitude practice before bed. At first, my list was short. I made it through the day without tears. The sun peeked out for a whole 5 minutes. But the list grew. A friend messaged me just to say hi. A neighbor helped me dig my car out after the snow. I caught myself laughing, really laughing at a silly meme. With each small acknowledgement of joy, I felt the heaviness in my chest begin to lift. The more I noticed, the more there seemed to notice. And then, the synchronicity started. Like a book falling open to exactly the page I needed, or a coworker mentioning a diversity initiative I'd been secretly hoping to join. It felt less like chance, more like the universe leaving breadcrumbs for me to follow. 3 months after that first afternoon, I was asked to co-lead a diversity and inclusion workshop at work, something I'd always dreamed of, but never thought I'd be invited to do. Excitement was quickly followed by fear. Could I actually share my truth? Would anyone care? I remembered a podcast by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Step into the identity you desire. Visualize not just the outcome, but the feelings, the confidence, the connection you crave. So I did. I pictured myself standing at the front of the conference room, voice clear and strong, eyes meeting eyes, feeling both nervous and powerful. I visualized faces softening, colleagues opening, a vibrational alignment between my truth and theirs. On the day of the workshop, I barely slept. My hands shook as I set up the projector, but as people filtered in, some skeptical, some supportive, I drew strength from every step of the journey that had led me here. I started with my story, the layers of prejudice and pain, but also the unexpected power of daily affirmations, of looking for good, of opening to connection instead of closing off. I spoke about the law of attraction, about how the world really can reflect back what you're willing to see in yourself, even in the smallest ways. The room was silent, intent. When the session ended, people lingered. A colleague who'd always seemed distant pulled me aside, eyes bright with tears, and said, Thank you for saying what I've always been afraid to. You made me feel less alone. Walking home through the slushy streets, snow crunching under my boots, I realized this was the manifestation Miriam had spoken of. Not just acceptance from others, but acceptance from myself, radiating out, drawing the right people closer. Days later, I returned to that same coffee shop, hoping to find Miriam, to thank her. As luck would have it, she wasn't there. But the chair by the window glowed in the winter sunlight, and I felt her spirit with me, like a quiet blessing. I still keep that slip of paper, worn and soft now, tucked in my wallet. I am worthy of love and belonging. I choose to see abundance and connection everywhere I go. I whisper it most mornings, not because the world has changed overnight, but because my own sense of belonging is no longer dependent on its approval. Prejudice hasn't disappeared, but I meet it with a sturdier heart and a belief in my own worth that I claimed. One day, one affirmation, one act of hope at a time. If you're listening to this and your story sounds even a little like mine, if you know what it is to feel like you're on the outside, to question whether you are enough, I hope you'll remember this. Real change starts in the smallest decisions. In the stories we tell ourselves, in the intentional moments we choose hope, in daring to let the world see more of who we really are. The universe responds to the energy you bring, the vibration you nurture, the willingness to believe even for a moment that something different is possible. Start where you are, with what you have. Let gratitude and affirmation be your daily practice. Open to new connections, and trust that you're planting seeds of belonging that will flourish in their own time. And if you're ready to believe you belong, comment below. I am worthy. If this story brought you hope, please like, subscribe, and share. Your story could be the sign someone else is hoping for. Doors will open, light will find you. And sometimes all it takes is one unexpected conversation, over a cup of chai, to remind you that you are not alone, and that you have the power to start creating your dream life right now.